For thousands of years, the jungles have guarded their secrets. Beneath the vines and roots, beneath the soil and stone, lies a world built by visionaries, warriors, and dreamers. The Maya, the Aztec, the Olmec. Civilizations that carved temples out of mountains, charted the heavens with stone calendars, and built empires that rivaled Rome and Egypt. Yet today, most of their stories remain hidden in silence. The Olmec, the mother culture of Mesoamerica. Around 1200 BCE, they shaped colossal heads from volcanic rock, each weighing up to 40 tons. No one knows whose faces these were. Kings, warriors, or gods. Their cities rose and vanished, but their legacy planted the seeds of all that would follow. The Maya inherited the skies. Their astronomers mapped Venus with breathtaking precision, predicting its cycles with only stone, shadow, and patience. While Europe struggled through the Dark Ages, Maya mathematicians had already invented the concept of zero. Statues tell of gods, glyphs tell of kings, but numbers tell of genius. Then came the city of Teotihuacan, a place so vast, so powerful it was called the city where the gods were born. Its pyramids aligned not just with the sun, but with the cosmos itself. At its height, nearly 200,000 souls lived here, one of the largest cities on Earth at the time. Larger than Rome, larger than Constantinople. And then, silence. No one knows why its people vanished. Centuries later, the Aztec Empire rose upon a lake, a city of floating gardens and temples piercing the sky. Tenochtitlán. Here, faith and fear ruled hand in hand. Great pyramids, marketplaces with goods from across the empire, and rituals that terrified Spanish chroniclers. When Hernán Cortés arrived, he wrote that the city shone like a dream of gold. Yet within 2 years, fire, disease, and steel brought it to ruin. Today, archaeologists unearth more than stone. They uncover stories of triumph and tragedy, of art and astronomy, of power and loss. Each discovery rewrites history. Each glyph cracked, each tomb opened, is a whisper from a civilization that still speaks through the ruins. The Olmec, the Maya, the Aztec. They are not lost. They live in language, in culture, in science, and in bloodlines that endure across Mexico and Central America today. These are not dead civilizations. They are eternal voices reminding us that even the mightiest empires can fall, and yet their wisdom can outlast stone. The temples still stand. The stones still speak. And if we listen closely enough, they may yet tell us who we are. For centuries, the jungle has kept its secrets. But deep beneath the roots, older than the Maya, older than the Aztec, there was once a people who laid the very foundation of Mesoamerican civilization. Archaeologists call them the Olmec. Their world begins around 1200 BCE on the swampy coasts of what is now southern Mexico, a land of rivers and fertile soil, yet also a place of danger, with floods, storms, and shifting earth. Here, they carved a new way of life that would inspire every culture that followed. The Olmec are often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, and for good reason. Their achievements shaped the very ideas of kingship, ritual, and sacred spaces that we later see perfected by the Maya and Aztec. But unlike the towering temples of the Maya or the massive cities of the Aztec, the Olmec left behind something else, monuments so strange, so powerful, that they still stir debate today. Imagine walking through the jungle and stumbling upon a stone face rising taller than a man, weighing as much as 40 tons. Lips pressed firmly, eyes staring out across the ages, wearing a helmet that suggests a warrior or a ruler. These are the colossal heads of the Olmec. To move them, ancient builders dragged volcanic boulders across miles of rivers and swamps without wheels, without animals to pull them. Only human determination and unity could have achieved this. The faces carved into these stones remain silent, yet they whisper of power. Were they portraits of kings, generals, or ancestors? No one knows for certain, but their presence tells us this. The Olmec believed in leaders who could embody strength, protect their people, and connect with the gods. Beyond the colossal heads, the Olmec built centers of ceremony and trade. San Lorenzo, one of their greatest cities, rose with palaces, courtyards, and platforms. Later came La Venta, with its towering earthen pyramids standing over the flatlands like a sacred mountain. These were not mere villages. They were designed spaces of faith and politics, where rulers stood at the center of the universe. Every stone aligned with meaning, every space charged with the energy of ritual. The Olmec also introduced symbols that became the building blocks of later cultures. They were among the first in the Americas to develop a writing system. We see it etched into jade, carved into stone, painted onto pottery. We cannot read all of it yet, but its existence is proof of a complex society with memory and history to preserve. Alongside writing came numbers, calendars, and the earliest hints of the ball game, a sacred sport that would echo through Maya courts and Aztec arenas. For the Olmec, life was not just survival, it was organized, measured, and woven into a cosmic order. And their gods, powerful, strange, and still recognizable, spread across the ages. The jaguar, fierce and mysterious, became a symbol of power and transformation. The feathered serpent, born here in Olmec thought, would grow into Quetzalcoatl, one of the most revered deities of the Aztec. Half-human, half-animal beings appear again and again, suggesting a world where boundaries between earth, sky, and spirit were never fixed. But like all great civilizations, their story is not without mystery. By 400 BCE, the great Olmec centers had collapsed. Their monuments were left abandoned, some deliberately buried as if to hide them from the future. Was it environmental change, internal conflict, shifting rivers that destroyed their farmland? The answers remain hidden, though each excavation brings us closer. What is clear is that their ideas did not vanish. They lived on, carried in trade routes, adopted by neighboring peoples, and eventually reborn in the temples of the Maya and Aztec. What makes the Olmec extraordinary is not only what they built, but how far their influence stretched. Jade from the Olmec world has been found hundreds of miles away. Their style of art, baby-faced figurines, jaguar-human hybrids, and intricate masks, appears in regions they never ruled. Their vision of sacred kingship, cosmic balance, and monumental stone became a blueprint for future empires. Today, when archaeologists brush the dirt from an Olmec carving, or when villagers uncover a buried head in their fields, the world is reminded of how much we still don't know. Who were these people who dared to carve giants from stone? How did they organize the labor, the vision, the belief needed to transform raw earth into sacred space? And why did their centers fall into silence while their ideas endured for centuries? The Olmec show us that civilizations are not born in isolation. They grow on the shoulders of those who came before, and they pass their wisdom to those who follow. Without the Olmec, the Maya might never have charted the stars, and the Aztec might never have built their empire of faith and fear. The story of Mesoamerica begins here, in the swamps and jungles of southern Mexico, where stone faces still wait, watching us with the same steady gaze they held for over 3,000 years. In the heart of Central America, stretching across what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, a civilization flourished with an imagination and intellect that continues to astonish the modern world. The Maya were not simply builders of stone pyramids. They were architects of time itself. They looked to the heavens and created systems so precise that even today scientists marvel at their accuracy. The Maya understood that the universe was more than stars scattered across the night sky. To them, it was a living calendar, a clock whose hands were planets, moons, and suns. Centuries before Europe developed advanced astronomical tools, the Maya could predict solar eclipses, track the movement of Venus, and chart the cycles of the moon with extraordinary precision. One of their greatest achievements was the creation of a calendar that outperformed many others across the globe. Their long-count calendar could trace time back to creation itself, measuring not just days and years, but vast cycles that spanned thousands of years. But their brilliance was not limited to the stars. The Maya grasped mathematical concepts that would not appear in many other cultures for centuries. Among these was the number zero. While the concept of zero is often taken for granted today, it was revolutionary in its time. The Maya used it to construct complex calculations, making their calendars and astronomical records possible. This innovation allowed them to record history, chart the cosmos, and build a world where numbers carried spiritual meaning as well as practical power. Their cities reflect this same marriage of science, faith, and ambition. Chichen Itza, Tikal, Copan, Palenque, each one rising from the jungle like an island of stone and vision. These cities were not randomly placed. They were aligned with the paths of the sun and stars. Temples served as both places of worship and observatories. At Chichen Itza, the Great Pyramid of Kukulkan was built with such precision that during the equinox, the setting sun casts a shadow that creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down its steps. It was not simply a monument. It was a living connection between heaven and earth. Inside these cities, plazas opened to grand temples and palaces where rulers proclaimed their power. Hieroglyphs carved into stone tell of dynasties, alliances, and battles. The Maya wrote about their kings and queens, about their gods, and about the rhythm of their universe. They painted on pottery, carved into stone stelae, and folded their wisdom into codices, books made from bark paper. Many of these codices were destroyed during the Spanish Conquest, but a few survived, offering a glimpse into a world of immense knowledge. Yet behind the magnificence, the Maya world was not free of struggle. City-states rose and fell in cycles of rivalry and war. Each city was its own kingdom, ruled by powerful dynasties that sought to expand their influence. They fought wars not just for land, but for prestige, captives, and tribute. Their ball game, played on stone courts, was more than a sport. It was a ritual tied to life, death, and the favor of the gods. For the Maya, the line between the earthly and the divine was thin, and every victory or defeat carried cosmic weight. The collapse of the great classic Maya cities around the 9th century remains one of history's enduring mysteries. For hundreds of years, cities like Tikal and Copan had thrived, with populations in the tens of thousands. Then, within a century, many of these centers were abandoned. Scholars point to a combination of factors: overpopulation, warfare, shifting trade routes, and long droughts that devastated crops. Whatever the cause, the jungle reclaimed their cities, wrapping temples and palaces in roots and vines, hiding their brilliance until explorers stumbled upon them centuries later. But the Maya did not disappear. Their descendants still live across Central America today, speaking dozens of Mayan languages, keeping alive traditions that stretch back thousands of years. We see their heritage in woven textiles, in rituals, in festivals that blend ancient belief with modern life. The calendar, the mythology, the connection to land and sky all still echo through their culture. Archaeologists continue to uncover Maya secrets with every excavation. Advanced technology, like LiDAR scanning from aircraft, has revealed vast networks of roads, hidden pyramids, and entire cities still buried beneath the jungle. These discoveries prove that Maya civilization was far more expansive and interconnected than anyone once imagined. What we know now may only be a fraction of their true greatness. The story of the Maya is one of vision that reached beyond survival, beyond the present, into the vastness of time itself. They remind us that human curiosity has always looked upward, to the stars, searching for meaning. They remind us that even when cities fall, ideas endure. Long before the Aztec Empire, long before the arrival of Spanish ships, there was a city so vast and powerful that later generations believed it had been built by gods. This was Teotihuacan, the place where the gods were born. At its height, it was one of the largest cities in the world, a metropolis of stone and vision that rivaled the great cities of Rome and Constantinople. Teotihuacan's story begins more than 2,000 years ago, in the Valley of Mexico, a fertile basin ringed by volcanoes and lakes. Here, by the 1st century CE, a group of builders and dreamers created a city unlike any seen before in the Americas. They raised pyramids taller than 20-story buildings, laid out wide avenues that stretched for miles, and constructed neighborhoods that housed more than 100,000 people. For comparison, when Teotihuacan flourished, London was little more than a small town. At the heart of this city lay the Avenue of the Dead, a grand boulevard lined with temples, platforms, and pyramids that stretched for nearly 2 miles. Walking along it today, one can still feel the scale and the ambition that shaped this place. To the east rose the Pyramid of the Sun, one of the largest structures ever built in the ancient world. To the north stood the Pyramid of the Moon, overlooking the entire valley. At the center, the Temple of the Feathered Serpent dazzled with intricate carvings of serpents and seashells, symbols of water, fertility, and power. But Teotihuacan was not just monumental stone. It was a living, breathing city. Its neighborhoods were carefully planned, filled with apartment compounds made of stone, each with courtyards, altars, and murals painted with vibrant colors. These homes were not for a handful of elites. They were for ordinary families. Archaeologists believe this city was one of the earliest experiments in true urban living. Trade fueled its growth. Obsidian, a volcanic glass sharper than steel, was mined nearby and traded across Mesoamerica. Jade, cacao, feathers, and ceramics flowed into its markets from distant regions. Teotihuacan's reach stretched hundreds of miles, influencing cultures as far away as the Maya lowlands. This was not just a city. It was the beating heart of a vast network of exchange and influence. Its people left us murals filled with clues about their lives and beliefs. Painted on plaster walls, we see images of jaguars, serpents, warriors, and gods. Unlike the Maya, the people of Teotihuacan did not leave behind written records of kings or dynasties. We do not know their rulers by name, nor do we know the language they spoke. Their silence makes their achievements even more mysterious. A city this grand, and yet its leaders remain faceless in history. What we do know is that Teotihuacan was a city of both faith and fire. Temples were not just buildings. They were mountains of stone built to mirror the sacred peaks around them. Rituals carried cosmic weight. Evidence shows that human sacrifice played a role in dedicating temples, a way of binding blood to stone and sealing the power of the gods within the city's walls. For centuries, Teotihuacan thrived. Its avenues echoed with markets, its plazas with ceremonies, its temples with the prayers of tens of thousands. But like all great powers, its time came to an end. Around the 6th century CE, the city began to unravel. Archaeological evidence suggests widespread fire in parts of the city, possibly the result of internal revolt. Crops may have failed, trade may have shifted. By the 8th century, the Great Pyramids stood silent. The city that had once been home to nearly 250,000 people was abandoned to the winds and the earth. When the Aztec discovered its ruins centuries later, they were awestruck. They believed the city had been built not by humans, but by gods. To them, Teotihuacan was the place where the sun was born, where the universe itself was set in motion. They gave the pyramids their names, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and wove them into their own mythology. Even in ruin, Teotihuacan inspired awe and reverence. Today, the city continues to hold its mysteries. Modern archaeology, with tools like LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar, has revealed hidden tunnels beneath the pyramids, chambers filled with offerings of jade, obsidian, and liquid mercury. Each discovery adds a piece to the puzzle, yet the full story of who built Teotihuacan and why it fell remains unanswered. What is undeniable is its impact. Teotihuacan shaped the course of Mesoamerican history. Its art, its architecture, its religion, and its urban design echoed through centuries, influencing the Maya, inspiring the Aztec, and reminding us of the heights humanity can reach even without modern tools. In the heart of the Valley of Mexico, on an island in the middle of a vast lake, rose one of the greatest cities the world had ever seen. Its name was Tenochtitlan, the jewel of the Aztec Empire. By the early 1500s, this city was home to more than 200,000 people, making it larger than London, Paris, or Madrid of the same era. Built upon water, surrounded by mountains and volcanoes, it seemed to float like a vision of stone and gold. For the Aztec, it was not only a capital, it was the very center of their universe. According to their traditions, the Aztec were once wanderers, searching for the place foretold by prophecy. They believed their god Huitzilopochtli had promised them a homeland, a place where they would see an eagle perched on a cactus devouring a snake. When they finally saw this vision on a small island in Lake Texcoco, they began to build. What began as a fragile settlement of reed huts and wooden walkways grew into a metropolis of temples, palaces, and marketplaces. They expanded their island with chinampas, floating gardens of reeds and mud that provided enough food to feed a growing population. From this unlikely foundation rose an empire that would dominate central Mexico. The power of the Aztec did not rest only in stone walls or military might. It was rooted in faith, a worldview that saw the cosmos as a delicate balance between creation and destruction. To them, the sun required nourishment, and the gods demanded offerings to keep the world alive. Sacrifice, though horrifying to outsiders, was sacred to the Aztec. Captives taken in battle were offered on the altars of temples, their blood believed to sustain the universe. It was not cruelty for its own sake, it was duty, a responsibility to maintain cosmic order. At the heart of Tenochtitlán stood the Templo Mayor, the Great Temple. Twin stairways led to twin shrines, one to Huitzilopochtli, god of war and the sun, and the other to Tlaloc, god of rain and fertility. Here, the Aztec performed the ceremonies that defined their world. From the temple's summit, priests looked out over the city's canals, marketplaces, and palaces, across the shimmering lake to the mountains beyond. Everything radiated from this sacred center. The Aztec were skilled warriors, feared by neighboring states. Their empire grew rapidly through conquest, demanding tribute of goods, labor, and captives. Warriors trained from youth, their ranks filled with elite orders like the Jaguar and Eagle warriors, who fought with weapons of obsidian blades and wooden shields. Each campaign not only expanded Aztec wealth, but also fed their religious rituals with the captives required for sacrifice. Power and faith marched hand in hand, creating a society that fused politics with the sacred. But Tenochtitlan was not only a city of war and ritual, it was also a city of beauty and abundance. The great marketplace of Tlatelolco astonished Spanish chroniclers, who described thousands of merchants gathered to sell everything from cacao and cotton to feathers, obsidian, and gold. Streets and canals bustled with activity as canoes ferried goods across the lake. Artisans carved jade and turquoise, scribes recorded tribute in codices, and poets recited verses that celebrated both the brevity and wonder of life. Despite its reputation for harshness, Aztec society valued art, music, and learning. When the Spanish first laid eyes on Tenochtitlan, they could scarcely believe it was real. Hernán Cortés and his men compared it to visions of Venice, with canals and causeways, palaces glittering with white stone, and gardens filled with flowers. For a moment, the old world met the new not as conquerors and conquered, but as witnesses to one another's grandeur. Yet within 2 years, the dream of Tenochtitlan was shattered. The arrival of the Spanish set into motion a chain of devastation the Aztec could not withstand. Superior weapons, alliances with rival tribes, and the invisible terror of smallpox struck at the empire's heart. In 1521, after months of siege, the city fell. The temples were torn down, the palaces destroyed, and the canals filled in. What had once been a city of stone rising above water was replaced by the colonial city of Mexico, built upon its ruins. And yet, the story of the Aztec did not vanish with their capital. Their language, Nahuatl, is still spoken by millions in Mexico today. Their myths, their poetry, and their art remain part of the nation's cultural heritage. The very symbol of Mexico, the eagle on a cactus devouring a snake, comes from the prophecy that led the Aztec to build their city in the first place. The legacy of the Aztec is written not only in history books, but also in the living traditions of the people who carry their blood. Beneath the dense jungles of Mesoamerica lies a story written not just in stone, but in the lives of millions of people who once called these lands home. To truly understand the Maya, the Aztec, and the Olmec, one must first look at the way they lived day by day. Their civilizations were not simply about towering pyramids or spectacular ceremonies. They were built on the strength of communities, on the daily rhythm of work, trade, family, and faith. These were societies where every detail of life, from planting crops to celebrating rituals, was part of a much larger picture that held their worlds together. At the heart of survival was agriculture. Maize, or corn, was more than just food, it was life itself. To the Maya, humans were even said to be made from maize, crafted by the gods out of its golden kernels. Every seed sown carried both practical and spiritual meaning. Alongside maize, beans, and squash grew, forming what is often called the Three Sisters, a balanced diet that sustained millions. These crops weren't scattered randomly, but cultivated through careful techniques. The Olmecs, the earliest of the three civilizations, pioneered ways to manage fertile floodplains, while the Maya carved terraces into hillsides and created raised fields in swampy regions. Later, the Aztecs perfected chinampas, floating gardens built on shallow lakes, that fed the massive population of Tenochtitlán, a city larger than many European capitals of its time. But food was not simply for sustenance. It shaped the economy. Surpluses from maize and other crops fueled markets where people gathered to trade. Imagine bustling plazas filled with the vibrant colors of cacao beans, cotton textiles, obsidian blades, and crafted jewelry. Cacao itself was not only consumed as a rich, bitter drink, but also used as currency. A handful of beans could buy a tamale or a rabbit, while cotton cloths and quetzal feathers served as higher-value goods. Trade routes stretched across mountains and forests, connecting distant regions. Jade from Guatemala, turquoise from the north, shells from the Gulf Coast, all found their way into ceremonial centers. Proof of a world deeply connected long before global trade became common. Social life, however, was not defined by trade alone. Communities were structured around roles and responsibilities. Farmers, artisans, warriors, and priests each had their place. For the Maya, cities were not only political centers, but also hubs of knowledge, where scribes recorded events in elaborate glyphs and astronomers studied the skies. Among the Aztecs, families were organized into calpulli, neighborhood groups that worked land collectively and shared duties, blending communal labor with social identity. Children were taught from an early age that discipline, respect, and service to the community were central to life. The Olmecs, though less is known about them, likely had similar community structures. What stands out most are their colossal stone heads, monuments that suggest powerful rulers and organized societies capable of moving and shaping massive blocks of basalt. These heads, with their unique expressions and elaborate helmets, still look out over us today, silent guardians of a forgotten world. Religion, however, was the heartbeat that kept everything alive. It was woven into farming, into politics, into daily routines. The Maya believed in a cosmos divided into layers, connected by the sacred world tree, its roots stretching into the underworld and its branches into the heavens. The Aztecs saw themselves as chosen people tasked with keeping the sun alive through offerings, a duty that shaped their worldview and their empire's rituals. Temples were not simply places of worship, they were the very centers of power, rising like mountains above the cities, reminding everyone of the link between the divine and the human. Life was not without struggle. Epidemics, droughts, and warfare all played their part in shaping these civilizations. The Maya faced cycles of collapse and renewal, as some cities fell while others rose. The Aztecs, despite their remarkable organization, lived with the constant demand of war, both for territory and for captives to fulfill religious needs. Yet despite hardship, these societies endured and innovated. They crafted calendars more precise than those in Europe at the time, tracked the movements of Venus and the sun, and built cities whose layouts mirrored the stars. In the home, daily routines were more familiar than we might think. Families gathered around hearths, women ground maize on stone metates to make tortillas, and children learned the skills of their parents. Music filled the air with drums, flutes, and rattles, while dances and festivals marked the passage of seasons. Every detail, from the way clothes were woven to the way homes were constructed from mud, wood, and thatch, spoke of a people who lived in harmony with their environment while constantly pushing its limits. When we step back and see it as a whole, daily life and social structure in Mesoamerica reveal a balance of necessity and imagination. These were not just civilizations of stone and empire. They were living, breathing cultures where belief and practicality walked hand in hand. They built worlds where the sacred and the ordinary were inseparable, where farming was both survival and prayer, where markets were both economic engines and social theaters, where rulers were not only leaders but mediators with the gods. Their legacy survives not just in ruins, but in traditions carried on by their descendants. In rural villages of Mexico and Central America, maize is still planted with ceremony, markets still buzz with life, and ancient rituals echo in festivals. It is a reminder that the story of these civilizations did not end with conquest, but continues quietly and powerfully into the present. The story of the Maya, Aztec, and Olmec did not end when their temples were abandoned or when Spanish ships arrived on distant shores. Instead, their legacies have traveled through time, reaching into our present and shaping the way we see history, science, and even our identity. To speak of Mesoamerican civilizations today is to speak not only of ruins and artifacts, but also of living memory, of traditions that survived conquest, of knowledge rediscovered, and of a profound impact that stretches across the globe. When the Spanish arrived in the early 16th century, they encountered cities that seemed to defy imagination. Tenochtitlán, the capital of the Aztec Empire, stood as one of the largest cities in the world. Built on an island with canals that rivaled Venice and markets that could host tens of thousands of people in a single day. Yet within just a few years, the city was burned, its temples toppled, its people scattered or enslaved. Similar fates awaited Maya cities and the remnants of Olmec culture. Conquest was brutal, marked not only by violence and disease, but by a deliberate effort to erase indigenous beliefs, replace them with European religion, and rewrite the past in foreign terms. But history, as it often does, found a way to endure. Despite suppression, indigenous communities preserved their traditions through oral storytelling, through rituals disguised within Christian practices, and through the unbroken rhythm of agricultural life. Maize continued to be planted with prayer. Languages like Nahuatl and Mayan were still spoken, passing down ancient wisdom in every word. Even when codices were burned and temples crumbled, knowledge lived on in the people themselves. Centuries later, explorers and archaeologists would bring these civilizations back into the world's imagination. In the 19th century, stories of lost cities hidden in the jungles of Central America sparked curiosity across Europe and North America. Travelers like John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood documented Maya ruins with words and illustrations that astonished readers, revealing that these were not savage tribes, but builders of advanced cities with written languages, astronomy, and mathematics, rivaling the greatest civilizations of antiquity. What had once been dismissed as myth was revealed as history. Modern archaeology has only deepened this revelation. With the help of technology like LiDAR scanning, researchers have uncovered vast networks of roads, reservoirs, and entire cities hidden beneath thick rainforest canopies. In Guatemala alone, thousands of previously unknown Maya structures were mapped, suggesting populations far larger than previously believed. These findings show that Mesoamerica was not a collection of isolated city-states, but a deeply interconnected world, one that understood engineering, ecology, and urban planning on a grand scale. The legacy of these civilizations is not confined to history books or museum halls. Their influence continues to shape global culture. Consider chocolate, first cultivated by the Olmecs and cherished by the Maya and Aztecs as a sacred drink. Today it is enjoyed worldwide, yet its origins lie in Mesoamerican rituals where cacao was a gift of the gods. Consider also the calendar systems, so precise in their measurement of celestial cycles that even today astronomers marvel at their accuracy. These are not relics of the past, but contributions that live on in daily life. Art and architecture carry their own lasting influence. The stepped pyramids of Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza inspire awe much like the pyramids of Egypt. Murals, stone carvings, and codices reveal not only aesthetics but entire world views, reminding us that history is not written in one script, but in many. The Olmecs, often called the mother culture, left behind colossal stone heads that continue to puzzle and fascinate, their faces staring into eternity as if guarding the secrets of a forgotten age. Yet perhaps the most enduring legacy lies in the people themselves. Today, millions of Maya, Nahua, and other indigenous groups live across Mexico and Central America. Their languages, traditions, and rituals are not relics. They are living cultures that adapt and thrive while carrying memories of their ancestors. Festivals, weaving patterns, music, and even forms of community governance reflect ideas first shaped thousands of years ago. To walk through a market in Oaxaca or a highland village in Guatemala is to witness living continuity with the ancient past. But the story also carries lessons that stretch far beyond Mesoamerica. The rise and fall of these civilizations remind us of both human potential and fragility. The Maya mastered the art of building cities in challenging environments, yet droughts and overuse of resources may have contributed to their decline. The Aztecs built a city that amazed European conquerors, yet their empire collapsed under the weight of war and invasion. The Olmecs, though less understood, remind us that even the earliest complex societies can vanish, leaving behind only fragments for us to piece together. Today, as modern societies face challenges of climate change, overpopulation, and cultural conflict, the stories of these civilizations feel strikingly relevant. Their innovations in agriculture, their understanding of astronomy, their ability to organize vast cities in harmony with nature all hold lessons worth remembering. At the same time, their declines stand as warnings of what can happen when balance is lost. The ruins of Mesoamerica are more than stones in the jungle. They are mirrors. They reflect what humans can achieve when creativity, belief, and community come together. They also reflect the dangers of forgetting that civilizations are fragile, their survival never guaranteed. And so, when we look upon the stepped pyramids rising from the forests, or hear the echoes of ancient tongues still spoken today, we are not only studying the past. We are engaging with a living heritage that continues to shape identity, memory, and imagination. The Maya, the Aztec, and the Olmec may no longer rule empires, but their influence stretches across centuries, reminding us that time does not erase greatness. It preserves it, waiting for us to remember. When we stand before the ruins of Mesoamerica, whether beneath the towering pyramid of Chichen Itza, in the shadow of Teotihuacan, or gazing into the timeless eyes of an Olmec head, we are not merely looking at the past. We are confronting a story that is still alive. These stones, carved with patience and vision, are not silent. They whisper of a world where the divine and the human were woven together, where farmers, priests, rulers, and warriors carried their lives with a sense of destiny. The Maya, Aztec, and Olmec remind us that greatness does not begin with wealth or power, but with imagination, resilience, and the will to leave something behind for future generations. They shaped landscapes, built cities that touched the heavens, and left us lessons etched in astronomy, agriculture, and art. Their triumphs inspire us, and their struggles warn us. No civilization is too strong to fall, and no memory is too distant to rise again. As we turn away from these monuments, the question remains, what will we leave behind? Will our world endure, or will it too become ruins for others to discover? The answer lies not in the stones of the past, but in the choices we make today.